So thanks for reaching out. I'm going to show you, I think, just three um, different sources that you can use to do timeline search and incidences of keywords showing up in official and unofficial publications. This is something that I'm happy to expand on. If you want to work in a class or if I can help you in any other way, let me know. Because there's more than one way to um, do this sort of thing. But most of the databases have like a little timeline thing. When we first go out to the open web, though, it is worth noting there's a tool developed by Google in collaboration with UBerkeley, University of Michigan. I think University of Utah participated too, where they got these high-speed book scanners that were really exotic. They were so fun to watch, and it would scan a book in about 30 minutes. They scanned all the books in these academic libraries, representing a big percentage of North American collections, and you could look up um, keywords. And in this one, you can do a compound. You don't have to put quotes around it. Um, so it assumes in every search that it's going to be just um, the words that you put in. So you could put like Fourscore for blah, 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 quote from somebody, and you don't have to put it in quotes. Another one you can do is you can add a comma. Martin Luther King, and it will show you a comparison. Now you can see civil rights has a much bigger scope in academic libraries than civil rights, but if you just did Martin Luther King as a single search, you can see what do you call those? Is that a spark line? You can see the trends of those individual ones. So you don't have to compare. You can do it one by one. When you go to each one of these, isn't it interesting that the legacy of Martin Luther King peaked? There was a dip into 1980, but then it came back 1989. All of those things researchers and students really like because they can be like, ooh, why did that happen? And then they can go back and start making like correlations and suppositions and things like that. Okay, next one. If you go to the library databases at the University of Utah, you can go in by newspapers rather. We have many historical complete runs of like LA Times, Denver Post. I don't think we have the Salt Lake Tribune or Deseret News, but we might have like indexes of those. So if you're looking for local stuff, I'll show you a tool where you can go back 20 years or so. But there's a complete run of Washington Post, LA Times, and New York Times that run from the origin until present. There's some black newspapers research. Those are fascinating, going back and looking at different points of view during civil rights era. But the first one I want to show you, so we have Google Ngram. Second one is Nexus Uni. There's the LA Times. Oh, it only goes to 93. Okay, we'll get around that. Nexus Uni. Nexus Uni allows you to look at law, Congress, legislature, debate, court findings, law reviews, all sorts of different things like that. One thing to worry about with this one is if you do a search here, that's kind of like a potluck and you're going to get many, many different things. The lower search bar, you can search through very specific things. So let's look up, you can see I did a search for George Floyd before. If you do a search for something that has more than one keyword, remember you have to put it in quotes, otherwise it'll get confused. We'll do all available dates. I'm just looking in news. This is not all, many of the newspapers in the United States, especially in the last couple of decades. What you can do is go to this timeline right here, and you can see there's a big spike of that particular time. If you wanted to, you could go up to that timeline and redraw, and it will give you a lovely graphic of when that name shows up. Another thing you can do is you can see who wrote about it the most. Looks like California wrote about it a ton. So variations in population and number of newspapers might be a variable here. So like Alaska having 56 versus California, the populations are wildly different sized, so that's something you would know better than me. Publication type, you can narrow it down. Subject, industry. Negative news, I'm not quite sure what this is. I think that's an algorithm built in, and I'm not quite sure who defines the criteria for that. So that's another way to go. Oh, by the way, if you narrow down to a state, it should redraw that timeline. Okay, and it shows you the articles that it's drawing the data from. Let's go back to the library newspapers. I'll show you another way to get to it. So Nexus Uni, search in news. There is another database, which is probably one of my favorites. I would say it's in my top 5. It's called US News Stream. It appears under newspapers, but I'm just going to go straight to it from the U. News Stream, US News Stream. Fantastic database, and this one is a lot more precise with its timeline. So locally, we had this thing a few years ago where the police cleared out the park with social services and government. It was a big to-do called Operation Rio Grande. This happened where Pioneer Park had a big homelessness and protesting intervention. This is, so again, when I'm looking for that in quotes, what I can do is go down and see this timeline. So the timeline doesn't get much bigger than this, unfortunately. But are you going to let, oh, it's still loading. I can click on a particular time frame, I think. And it'll get more detailed as you narrow in. Oh, there's another one called Operation Rio Grande in Brownsville. That's interesting. So you can see the timeline gets more discrete and detailed as you go. If you wanted to download a bunch of articles, there's a way of doing batch download and things like that. And I'm not familiar with those, but I know that it's something that can be done. And again, with this one, you can narrow down by publication title. And this is where we get a lot more of our Salt Lake Tribune and Deseret News, that sort of thing. So, does this help? Let me know if you want to talk further. I'm delighted to help. Have a good one.